What does religious supremacy actually cost? Not philosophically, not theoretically, but in bodies, in burned civilizations, in children stolen from their families, in a city being bombed into rubble right now as we speak, while the world still debates whether it is appropriate to call it what it actually is. This video is keeping accountability, and the number is higher than you think. We are told that religious violence is a thing of the past. It's a medieval problem. Something humanity has basically outgrown, right? I want to show you exactly why that is a lie. From the papal bulls that legally authorized the enslavement of entire continents to the theology driving the destruction of Gaza in 2025. Same logic, same structure, different century. The pattern did not end. It only got better PR and marketing. I am Solomon Pakal. I am a Kachikal Maya descendant. I am an occult researcher and practitioner of over 20 years. And this is the Mystery Codex. Into the mysteries we go. Now, for the full entourage of the historical citations I am about to make, I encourage you to check out the full article on my Substack, link in the description below. But we can start at 1452, where Pope Nicholas V issues a papal bull called Dum Diversas. This authorized the King of Portugal to, direct quote, invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans, and to reduce their personhoods to perpetual slavery. 3 years later, there would be a follow-up document extending this to all lands being discovered that aren't ruled by Christian princes. Then in 1493, Pope Alexander VI divides the entire non-Christian world between Spain and Portugal. The whole world, as if it were uninhabited, because without Christianity, the millions of people already living there didn't have full human standing within the church's legal theology. This was called the doctrine of discovery, and it's the theological foundation of every land grab, every forced conversion, and every colonial genocide that would ever follow. What followed was one of the largest collapses in human history. Conservative estimates place the pre-contact population of the Americas at 50 million people. By 1600, roughly a century after contact, perhaps 10 million remained. Now, the population would bounce back after adaptations to disease that would play a role, but the native population most certainly had to evolve in certain ways that wouldn't be there if it weren't for the European colonizers. Much of the indigenous collapse can be rooted in the disease that would be non-native to the Americas that the Europeans brought. Besides just raw violence, some colonizers deliberately smallpox and other diseases, all under the guise of they are saving souls and they are bringing truths. They are doing God's work. This really culminated in the burning of the Maya codices, not just in Mani, but across the continent. We lost all kinds of indigenous astronomical systems developed over millennia, medicinal knowledge, philosophical frameworks for understanding consciousness and the cosmos, centuries of accumulated human knowledge, just all gone. And it's all because one tradition had decided it held the only legitimate map of reality and to God, and everything else was the devil's deception. The logic didn't stop with the conquest. It extended into 19th and 20th centuries through residential schools in North America and Australia and beyond. Indigenous children were forcibly removed from their families, not unlike today in ICE detention centers, and placed in church administrative institutions. And these institutions were designed to destroy cultural identity over time through brainwashing, through social manipulation. The motto said it plainly: kill the Indian, save the man. Children were beaten for speaking their own native languages, prohibited from their ceremonies, sexually, physically, and psychologically abused at massive scale. And I'm not just saying this to bring up harsh historical facts. I, as a child of indigenous descent, was targeted in much similar ways when I went to a Catholic school that was predominantly white. These kinds of treatments have not been going away. Mass graves are still being discovered, and this is in the continental United States. And the churches that ran these institutions genuinely believed that they were doing redemptive work. That is the precise horror, not monsters who know they are monstrous, but believers that believe in absolute certainty of their righteousness. If you want to support my work, please consider becoming a paid subscriber on my Substack, The Mystery Codex. Paid subscribers not only support my efforts in bringing the absolute best occult content to the various platforms, paid subscribers get access to the Practical Magic Vault, a collection of 4 full-length courses on general magic and manifestation, love magic, wealth magic, and spirit magic. These are not your run-of-the-mill Wikipedia or TikTok curated videos. I give you a process behind the methods informed by my over 20 years of experience in theory and practice, along with case studies to show you that I know what I'm talking about. On top of that, I release weekly content for paid subscribers only. And it's only $77 for the entire year. If you're ready to stop doom-scrolling magic DIYs on social media and ready to start making meaningful change with magic and manifestation, unlock the Practical Magic Vault today. Now let's talk about what happens when 2 supremacies collide instead of one supremacy dominating an unarmed population. In 1095, Pope Urban II calls for a military campaign to take Jerusalem. He promises that killing Muslims earns remission of sins, as in your ticket to heaven, purchased with someone else's blood. And this kind of mentality, even though it's not a doctrinal decree, this mentality has most certainly carried over into the modern day. And I can tell you as a former U.S. Army service member that there was a lot of people that believed when they were deployed to Iraq, especially during the surge, that they were on some kind of crusade. There's even footage in a documentary of a Marine Corps officer claiming that they are there to kill Satan in Jesus' name, which is a highly inappropriate comment to make when you are supposed to be a member of the United States military that is making geopolitical decisions based upon secular reasoning. Religious freedom, yes, but not to be used in a secular decision-making such as declaring war on another population. But the past Crusaders, they reached and breached Jerusalem's walls in 1099. They massacred the population, whether they were Muslim, Jewish, or even Eastern Christian. Contemporary accounts actually describe the streets being drenched in blood to ankle depth. Crusaders gave thanks to God and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, yet actually during this event their hands were still wet with blood. Now from the Islamic side, this was a defensive war against Christian invasion of sacred territory. Both sides held some kind of divine mandate. Both framed the conflict in cosmic terms. And this is the catastrophic logic of competing supremacies. When both sides believe God has exclusively authorized them, there's no neutral ground for negotiation. Compromise becomes apostasy. The only exits are conversion, subjugation, or annihilation. And before anybody watching this thinks Buddhism is the peaceful exception, let us remember that the Rohingya genocide in Myanmar was led by Buddhist monks. Buddhist nationalist rhetoric framed Muslim minorities as existential threats to Buddhist civilizations. The United Nations has called what followed a genocide. The structure of supremacy, not the nominal tradition, is the variable that predicts violence every time. Now, American slavery. American slavery was not conducted despite Christianity. It was conducted with Christianity's explicit theological blessing. Churches owned slaves. Pastors built elaborate biblical justifications. The Southern Baptist Convention was founded in 1845, specifically to defend slaveholders' rights. The Curse of Hams, as it was called, a tortured reading of 9 words in the book of Genesis, was used to argue that black people were divinely ordained for bondage. This was not French theology. This was mainstream, preached from respectable pulpits to respectable congregations who felt entirely righteous about it. The same scriptures were later quoted by abolitionists. Now, I know what you're saying. There were good Christians that fought against slavery. Yes, the same scriptures were later quoted by abolitionists to condemn slavery. But what does this tell you? This isn't actually a compliment. It tells you everything you need to know about what happens when you grant one tradition absolute authority over its own interpretation. You can sanctify any power structure you want to preserve. and then sanctify its opposite when the political winds shift. The text is not the problem. The claim of exclusive interpretive authority is the problem. And you see this happening with contemporary Christianity. If Christianity that prides itself on traditional values that are never changed, for God's word is unwavering and never changes, then the behaviors displayed by Bible-believing Christians would reflect that basically across all generations. But in more modern sects of Christianity, you have people that have face tattoos and crazy piercings and sling drugs and stuff like that. And all of it is just kind of wrapped up in like, well, Jesus forgives. And, Jesus was kind of an outcast. And yet these same congregations were MAGA supporting. They move the goalpost wherever they need in order to inflate their own political agendas or to gain amounts of members into the church. And the Catholic Church is no different than this too. When I was in Catholic school, we were actually taught that homosexuals were subhuman. And my archdiocese was trying everything possible to fight against the legalization of gay marriage. And now you have the church pandering in all kinds of ways to the LGBTQ community and even opening up for like alien disclosure and stuff. They move the goalposts wherever, so for whatever marketing looks better and for whatever gains member retention. If you want a personalized tour into the powers of Mayan astrology, book your birth chart reading with me today at MayanMysterySchool.com. Over the course of our sessions, we will deep dive into your innate spiritual qualities, subconscious instincts, how to maximize your relationships with others, analyze your darkest shadows, and outline a path towards your greatest good, prosperity, and highest quality of life. Here I package it all up for you in a custom 60-page plus ebook, as if it's a personally channeled grimoire made just for you, complete with illustration, information, instruction, and ritual prompts for the next 5 years, all based upon your Maya telluric astrological timing. This is unlike any other manifestation, magic, esoteric, or occult coaching program or course program out there. The depth, rarity of Mayan ancestral practice expertise, and actionable results makes your Mayan destiny divination a one-of-a-kind experience. Due to the immersion involved, I can only take a few clients on at a time. I look forward to working together. Which brings us to now. We can look across the world. The biggest example of religious supremacy seems to be this coalition. We all know what's going on in the Middle East, but it is enabled by Western powers that have their own kind of supremacist mythology that involves their own mythos of a country over there doing things and a certain people doing things. This discussion of religious supremacy, of colonization, it's not some bygone thing. It is literally happening. And for the people that says stop complaining about it, colored people are making some kind of excuse or DEI excuse. It's like, people, blue collar working white people, please, you are colonized too. They weaponize you. As a former serviceman, do you know who is getting sent to go die for a religious cause? But they're not telling you honestly it's a religious cause. It is primarily a big student body of the lower ranking members of the military are white, blue-collared working individuals. And they are sending your sons and daughters and your descendants to go fight for a war and the profit margins of rich and powerful white people. You are being used as agents. This goes beyond just Palestine. It goes beyond just indigenous rights in the Americas. It goes beyond the knowledge we have lost in with the Maya and other targeted groups. You hear the West always yapping about the benefits of science, yet none of it is being used to have the revelation that maybe all religions have some kind of piece of the truth. And it's actually just being weaponized to, like, how do we incorporate the science stuff with our Jesus mythology to support the prophecies? That's not how science works, but that's how it's being used. Science is being used to support a mythological narrative. And this is nothing new. People, whenever there's new discoveries, they always try to incorporate it into their own mythology. This is what Christianity did with Plato, is they want to say he was some kind of apologetic pagan, like a pre-Christian individual, and they want to add him into biblical canon. Because it's not about actual biblical canon. It's about a monoculture of what the West believes the West is. And that is your Gerard Butler looking, like, He-Man mythologies, Hollywood movies. That's how they see themselves. And they utilize biblical mythology to support that. And we are all in danger because they want bombs to drop, bombs that have irreversible destruction, all to support their doomsday and superiority mythologies. And the people that pay for it are going to be the poor blue-collared working white people and all colored peoples. These are peoples that don't even share the same beliefs as them. Even for the blue-collared Christians, they may believe it like when it's being written down, but would they agree with them being sacrificed for the greater cause, or their sons and daughters being sacrificed for the greater cause? I think you would get a resounding no for that. So the traditions they contained kept moving underground, kept transmitting, kept producing practitioners who asked not who is chosen, but what is real and how do we work with it? That is the answer to resistance, is start understanding that metaphysics is a live art that many different cultures were tapping into in their own way. And there is no universal truth. Because if there was, would have been proven by now. It wouldn't have to be, oh, the doomsday, the second coming's on this day, and this day, and this day. It wouldn't be getting any of that wrong if any one of these truths was correct. So the real question is, where do we go from here? Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram, Threads. Subscribe to my Substack if you want to support my work. And stay tuned for more Decolonizing Spirituality.